All right, we are going to get started here. Okay, so this next panel I mistakenly introduced, and it is the candidates for the District 7 judge race. And we have Judge Stephen Cahill and Ken Kohler here. And due to the nature of their race, they will each just provide a 5-minute statement, and we won't have any questions. So to start, Candidate Cahill.
Thank you. My name is Steve Cahill. I have been a district judge here for 8.5 years. I was appointed in 2006 by Governor Pawlenty, and then I was elected 2 years later in 2008, so we have another election coming up this November. My background, I have lived in Moorhead pretty much all my life. I was born in Minneapolis. My family came here to Moorhead when I was 10 years old. Graduated from Shanley High School, went to Moorhead State for a couple of years. Then I transferred to Winona and graduated from Winona State. And then I went to William Mitchell Law School in St. Paul. And when that was over with, I was lucky enough to have a dad who was a lawyer here at Moorhead. So I came back home and joined the firm of Cahill, Gunnis Street, Grinnell, Jeffries, and Klinger. Where we were I was there for 5 years, and then my dad and I left that firm and set up our own firm in 2001. And my brother Bart joined us, and so that's where I've been up until the time I was appointed to the judgeship. I have the 8.5 years of experience being a judge. It's a lot different being a judge than being on the other side of the bench. Because there you're an advocate for one party or the other. As a judge, you can't be an advocate for anybody. You have to be fair and impartial and try to make the best decision that you can. Sometimes that's difficult. The law is rarely black or white, but there are a lot of shades of gray in between. And so you need somebody who has some experience of life, some common sense, good judgment. And I think I have that. I think that I have done a good job during the 8.5 years that I have been a judge. I've been active in the community as well and active in the Bar Association. As a lawyer, I was on the District Ethics Committee and I was chair of that committee for a couple of years before I was appointed the judge. I've been on several Minnesota Supreme Court case task forces and committees. For 6 years, I was on the Board of Governors of the Minnesota State Bar Association. So I've got a lot of experience in the world with the bar, the lawyers around the state, and just with the people in the community that I live in. Our district is the 7th Judicial District, and it consists of 10 counties running all the way from Moorhead down to St. Cloud. And that's a pretty big district to run in. But that's the way it's set up. And during my 29 years of civil practice, and that's what I was doing for my 29 years of practice before becoming a judge, I was involved strictly in civil litigation. I didn't do any criminal law work. As a civil litigant, I was fortunate enough to be able to try 75 jury cases to a conclusion, which is quite a lot for someone in civil litigation. Those in criminal litigation, which is Mr. Kohler's background, they tend to try a lot more cases because criminal trials are much more frequent and usually don't last quite as long as many civil trials do. So I have the breadth of experience to bring to the court of not only criminal law, which I've been doing a lot of since I went on the bench 8 years ago, but a very deep experience in civil litigation, which is something that many of our judges don't have. And I don't believe Mr. Kohler has much, if any, background in civil litigation either. Civil litigation can be much more complex than criminal. Criminal law, although it's important and serious and probably constitutes half of our caseload, is not so complex, but although it's very important. When we get into civil litigation involving injuries to people or property or contract disputes, it can be quite complex. And I frequently get calls from my fellow judges who don't have a civil litigation background asking me questions about how do I do this or how do I do that. And so I think that's extremely helpful and has been extremely helpful to me during my years on the bench. I think that I have done a good job as a judge, and that the job I've done merits re-election for another term. And now I have been criticized recently, as some of you may have heard, for some sentencing rulings that I made where I gave lighter sentences to a couple of people than what the guidelines call for. Now that's something that judges do all the time, and usually they don't get criticized for it, or not very much. But when you have a case where somebody is convicted of a minor crime that is really not a serious matter, sometimes it's just not fair to give them the heavy sentence that the crime typically would impose. And that's what happened in these two cases, and I continue to stand by the decisions that I made in those cases. I think what I did was right, it was fair, it was just. And so my time is up, so I have to stop. Thank you to the League very much for having us here today.
Thank you. Candidate Kohler.
Thank you, Jolene. Again, attorneys can't clear their throat in 5 minutes, so please bear with me. One of the things I do in addition to being a full-time attorney is I teach at the Tech College. And I use movies often to try to reiterate important points to my classes and those type of things. When I think about the judicial election in the 7th Judicial District, I think of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. They're racing across the deserts and they keep looking back, and the posse is always there. And they look back and say, who are those guys? How many times have you gone into the election booth and when you get confronted with the people that are running for judges, you say, who are those guys? Well, I want to thank the League, I want to thank the library for allowing us to have these forums. Hopefully when you go into the voter's booth, you'll be able to say, who is that guy? And you can answer that question. My name is Ken Kohler. I'm running for judge in the 7th Judicial District. I was born and raised on a farm in Redwood Falls. I live in Moorhead, graduate from the University of Minnesota Morris, Hamline University School of Law. And by the way, we don't look anything like Paul Newman or Robert Redford, just to let you know that. I belong to the Minnesota, North Dakota, and federal bars. I am a representative for the Minnesota Bar Association in the 7th Judicial District. I've been a trial attorney for over 30 years. I've been county attorney for over 20 years. I was a defense attorney for just under 10 years. I have tried well over 100 jury trials, and I'm a veteran. I was a JAG officer with the Minnesota Army National Guard for over 10 years. My judicial philosophy: I believe and I can promote judicial efficiency by mandating scheduling orders as it relates to all civil cases and criminal cases. And I do have civil case experience. In fact, several ongoing cases to date. I believe that there's a backlog in Clay County, and I see that when you've got cases that are a year to 2 years old that are still languishing through the process, that you have justice delayed. I believe that justice delayed is justice denied, and I think my efforts can speed up the process, make it much more efficient. I think that I can treat staff, litigants, and attorneys with a high level of professionalism and respect. I pledge and will uphold the Constitution of the state of Minnesota and the United States. I teach law, and I teach the Constitution on a regular basis. I believe strongly in that document. As old as it is still important to protect the individual rights of citizens. I believe that I can be fair and impartial, not be influenced by party, by wealth, by economic situations. I believe that I can be prepared for trials. With the experience that I have and that I can bring to this office, my knowledge, I'm not going to have to go research because, frankly, I've worn all the hats as it relates to the judicial team that's present. I believe that I can promote judicial accountability as well as judicial neutrality. I believe that I can be that person. I'm not there to make new law. I'm not there to deviate from guidelines that are set down, laws that are already established. I'm there to enforce the law for those people in the 7th Judicial District. Now I have a commitment in this case. Our legal system is a team effort. administrative staff, prosecutors, defense attorneys, law enforcement personnel, probationary staff, social service providers, but there's one person that leads the orchestra, and that's the judge. The judge is there to make sure that the team rules the roost. They're there to make sure that the system runs efficiently, fairly, and that it establishes a great amount of public confidence. I think that confidence is waning right now in Clay County. I think I can fix that problem. I think I can be there. I can bring back justice, efficiency, and public confidence back into our district. When I do juries, I always sit down at the very end and talk to a jury about justice. And as I was preparing for this presentation, folks, I thought about the very same thing. I use a quote, and I tell jurors that for justice to fail, good men and women need do nothing. And I thought about it. That same quote affects the same system that you are now going into, the electorate. For justice to fail, good men and women need do nothing. I'm not here to do nothing, folks. I'm here to see that the system work well, that justice has prevailed, and that the public confidence be restored in our district. And I hope you are as well. I ask you for your support. I ask you for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Please join me in thanking both candidates for the 7th Judicial District. In closing, I'd like to thank the Moorhead Library for hosting the forum today, AmCam for recording. The footage will be available on the League of Women Voters website, the Voter Service Committee for their work in preparing and hosting the forum today, and finally to the audience for coming out and asking your questions. Thank you and have a good Saturday.